Ethan reached the edge of the valley just as the first ship descended. It was massive, like a floating fortress, its hull made of black metal that reflected no light. The sound it made was deep, alive, like the growl of something ancient. A spotlight swept over him and he froze. The blue light of the shielding device was too bright to hide now. He raised it above his head and shouted, "Here! You want this? Come take it!" The beam stopped. A second later, a strange voice echoed from above, mechanical and cold. Human identified. Surrender the beacon and prepare for assimilation. Ethan laughed, breathless. Yeah, not happening. He threw the device onto a pile of rocks and stepped back. The ship descended lower, stirring the grass and dust around him. From its side, a hatch opened and 3 tall figures emerged. The Zarian hunters. Their armor shimmered like liquid glass and their eyes glowed with cruel intelligence. Ethan felt small standing before them, but he didn't move. He lifted a piece of metal pipe he had found earlier, holding it like a weapon. "If you want her, you'll have to go through me." The lead Zarian tilted its head. "You are fragile. Your resistance is meaningless," Ethan smiled faintly. "Maybe. But sometimes meaning isn't the point." The hunters advanced, their steps silent but sure. Ethan swung the pipe at the first one, sparks flying as it struck armor harder than stone. Pain shot through his arms, but he didn't stop. He hit again and again until one of them knocked him to the ground. Blood filled his mouth, but he still grinned. "You're gonna have to try harder." They aimed their weapons, small, glowing blades that hissed with energy. But before they could strike, the shielding device began to pulse violently. Ethan's eyes widened. Oh, that's new. Liara had changed the settings before he left. He realized it too late. The machine wasn't just hiding her signal now. It was building energy, unstable and wild. The light grew brighter, shaking the ground. The Zarian stepped back, confused. Ethan looked at the device, then at the sky. Guess this is it. He pulled a small metal pin from the generator's base and a safety lock. The light turned blinding. Back at the farmhouse, Liara saw the flash. It lit up the horizon like a second sun. Her scream tore through the quiet air as the explosion rippled across the valley, shaking everything. When the light faded, only smoke remained. The Zarian ship above flickered, its systems damaged by the surge of energy. It turned sharply, retreating into the clouds. Liara fell to the floor, clutching her chest. The bond between her and the shielding device was still active, and in that final pulse she had felt Ethan's heart stop. Her breath broke into sobs. "No, Ethan." She crawled to the door, her vision blurred by tears. The sky outside was gray and broken, the wind cold and sharp. In the distance, where the explosion had happened, there was nothing but fire and silence. She collapsed, trembling, whispering his name again and again. "Ethan, please!" But there was no answer. The next morning, the world was quiet. The storm had passed. Liara walked barefoot through the wet grass, her body weak, her soul heavier than it had ever been. She reached the place where the earth had burned black, and there, lying among the ashes, was Ethan's jacket. She picked it up with shaking hands. It was torn, scorched, but still warm. She pressed it to her chest and fell to her knees. Her voice cracked through her tears. "You said I should live. Then I will. I will live, Ethan Hale, and they will remember you." Above her, the sun began to rise, golden and soft, a new dawn over a broken field. For the first time, the alien woman understood what it meant to be human, and for the first time, the universe had learned what humanity's love could do. The wind was soft that morning. The fields were quiet again, touched by sunlight and peace. Liara stood alone, her silver eyes reflecting the empty sky. The ground where Ethan had fallen was now covered with wildflowers, small, white, fragile things that had grown overnight. She held his jacket close to her chest. It smelled of smoke and rain, but also of him, of kindness, of courage, of something no words could ever describe. For a long time she just stood there listening. Every sound of the breeze reminded her of his voice. Every heartbeat in her chest felt borrowed. as if she was still carrying a piece of him inside her. The Zarian ships had left Earth after the explosion. Their systems had been damaged by the surge, and their scanners had lost her signal completely. To them, the mission was over. They believed the fugitive was destroyed, but Liara knew the truth. A human had given his life to protect her, and because of him, she now lived. She looked up at the sky. "You told me to live," she whispered. "So I will. But I will not hide. I will tell them what you did." Her voice trembled, but her resolve was strong. She was not just a survivor now. She was a messenger. Over the next few days, Liara gathered the parts Ethan had used. The broken generator, the cracked shielding core, even the pieces of his old tools. She built something new, something small but powerful, a signal transmitter. It would send a message far beyond Earth's orbit. When it was ready, she stood before it, the morning sun shining behind her. She pressed her hand to the surface, and the machine came to life with a soft blue light. Her message began, "To any who hear this. This is Liara of the Zarian Exile Fleet. I speak not as a soldier nor as a scientist, but as one who has seen what we all forgot. I speak for a world you call primitive, a world that holds hearts stronger than our machines." Her voice shook, but she continued. "A human named Ethan Hale saved my life. He had no power, no weapon, no armor, only courage and kindness. He stood before our hunters unafraid and faced death so another could live. He showed me what we have lost and the meaning of compassion, of sacrifice, of love." The light on the transmitter brightened, sending her words into the stars. "If the Zarian hear this, know that I am not your enemy anymore. You can conquer planets, but you cannot conquer what lives in the hearts of humans. They are not weak. They are the fire that will outlast our cold empires." When the message was done, Liara knelt beside the transmitter and closed her eyes. A single tear fell on the dirt.
"He changed me,"
she whispered. "And one day he will change you too." The signal spread far beyond Earth, through satellites, through debris fields, through the emptiness between worlds. And somewhere deep in space, someone heard it. In the following months, strange things began to happen. Human scientists detected a faint alien transmission repeating across several frequencies. It wasn't hostile. It was a voice, calm, sad, and full of hope. They decoded it. It spoke of a man who gave his life for someone not of his kind. A man who chose love over fear. A man named Ethan Hale. When the story reached the human world, it spread like wildfire. People didn't care that it came from an alien. They only heard the message, and for the first time, humanity realized that their kindness had changed something far beyond their planet. But somewhere, deep in the stars, something greater was happening. Among the Zarian, the message reached hidden ears. Soldiers, workers, even leaders who had grown tired of endless conquest. They whispered the name of the human who had defied their ships. Some even began to question their war. Liara had started something no one could stop. Years later, she still lived quietly on Earth, near the same farmhouse where it all began. The world had moved on, but she never forgot. Each morning she would walk to the field and talk softly to the wind. "Good morning, Ethan," she would say, smiling through tears. "Your world is safe. Your people are stronger than you ever knew." Sometimes she would feel the wind brush against her hand, gentle, warm, almost like someone answering back. And in those moments, she knew he was still with her, not in body, but in spirit. The stars carried his story now, and every light in the sky reminded her of him. She looked up one last time, her voice a whisper of faith. "Wherever you are, they remember you. I remember you." The breeze carried her words into the golden horizon. And as the sun rose higher, a new dawn began, not just for Earth, not just for Liara, but for the galaxy that finally learned what a single human heart could mean. Because Ethan Hale was gone. But his kindness had become immortal. Across the endless stars, countless races had studied human DNA. They called it the living code of chaos, something wild and unbreakable. No lab in the galaxy could copy it. No machine could reproduce its strength. Human blood carried something that wasn't just biological. It carried will. It was the reason humans survived in places no one else could. It was the reason they were both feared and admired. For the alien race known as the Nihili, that same will had become their only hope. Once proud rulers of 6 systems, they were now a dying people. Their bodies had stopped healing. Their children were born lifeless, and their DNA had become fragile like old glass. Science had failed them. The universe had turned its back. Only one solution remained: human DNA. Most alien empires had tried to steal it. Some hunted humans across colonies, taking samples like thieves in the night. Others built artificial copies, but every shortcut failed. The copies fell apart. The cells died. The spark, the human essence, was missing. Commander Thorea Villain of the Nihili refused to steal. She was a tall woman of silver-blue skin, her eyes like living glass. Every movement she made carried the grace of a leader who had lost too much. Her people begged her to raid Earth, but she said no. If we must survive, she told them, we will earn our life through truth, not theft. And so, her ship, the Oralis 9, traveled silently to Earth. It hovered in orbit for weeks, hidden in the shadows of the moon, waiting for the right moment to speak. When the call finally reached human governments, the world panicked. Everyone remembered past alien visits that ended in blood. Politicians argued. Scientists doubted. Soldiers prepared for war. No one trusted them except for one man, Dr. Elias Hart, once one of Earth's brightest geneticists, now a forgotten name. He had walked away from fame after refusing to let his research be used for military cloning. People called him a fool, a traitor, a dreamer. Now he lived alone by the sea, surrounded by old machines and silence. When the Nihili sent a message asking for peaceful contact, Elias was the only scientist who volunteered. If they're telling the truth, he said, then maybe this time we can be more than what we were before. So, when the Oralis 9 descended one cold evening near the Atlantic cliffs, Elias stood waiting in the salt wind. The ground shook as the silver ship landed, glowing like a moon. From the mist came Thorea, wrapped in a soft blue aura. She moved slowly, like someone carrying the weight of her whole world. Elias didn't speak at first. He was staring, caught between awe and fear. She bowed her head before him. Her voice was gentle, melodic, almost trembling. "Human," she said. "We come not to take, but to ask. Our kind is dying. Your DNA holds something we cannot create. We ask you to help us live." Her honesty broke the silence between them. Elias saw her face, saw the pain that even beauty couldn't hide. He had seen desperation in humans before, but never like this. He led her into his small home, cluttered with old computers and unfinished research. As they walked in, he noticed her hands shaking slightly, not from fear but from exhaustion. He gave her water. She held the cup carefully as though it were sacred. He studied her blood under an old microscope. The results made his heart sink. Her DNA was falling apart, mutations spreading like cracks through crystal. It wasn't disease. It was time itself eating her people from the inside. When he told her, she only nodded. "We knew," she whispered. "But we needed someone to see us, not as monsters, but as souls worth saving." Elias looked at her and saw something he hadn't seen in years. Faith. Not in gods, not in power, but in humanity itself. He turned off the machine and walked to the window. Outside, the ocean roared against the rocks. "If I help you," he said softly, "others will come for it. They'll turn it into war." "Then help us learn," Thorea replied. "Teach us what makes humans rise again after every fall. We don't just want your cells. We want to understand your courage." Her words struck something deep inside him. All his life, Elias had tried to protect human goodness from greed. Maybe this was his chance to prove that goodness could reach beyond Earth. He faced her again, eyes steady. "All right," he said. "Then we begin." Outside, dawn touched the sea with light. Inside, a dying alien and a forgotten man began the work that could change the galaxy. Neither knew that what they were about to share would test the meaning of life itself. The next morning came soft and cold. Pale sunlight poured through the glass walls of Elias's small laboratory, touching the strange figure of Therea as she stood silent by the window. She had not slept all night. Her body was strong, but her heart carried the weight of an entire species. Elias walked in with 2 cups of coffee. He placed one on the table near her and smiled weakly. "I don't know if your kind drinks this," he said. Therea tilted her head curiously, then lifted the cup, sniffed the warm liquid, and took a cautious sip. Her eyes widened in surprise. "It tastes alive," she whispered. He laughed softly. "That's how most humans start their day, with something that keeps us alive a little longer." There was a quiet pause between them. The wind outside rattled the windows. Elias could feel the tension in the air, not fear, but something unspoken, heavy with meaning. "I sent your data to my old colleagues," Elias said finally. "I didn't tell them where it came from. I just asked for help analyzing the patterns." Therea turned sharply, her silver eyes glimmering.
You mean they do not know about me?
"No," Elias said. "If they did, they'd alert the government, and then you wouldn't be safe." For a moment, Therea said nothing. Her expression softened. "You risk much for someone you just met." Elias looked at her steadily. "You trusted me first." Her lips curved into a faint smile, almost human. "Trust is rare in the galaxy," she said. "But maybe that's what makes humans different. You give it even when you fear." Elias returned to the screen, running tests on the DNA samples. Each result came back with the same error: instability at the molecular base. The Nyali code was fading like ink on old paper. He sighed deeply. "Your DNA structure is breaking faster than I expected. Even if we transfer human genes, your cells might reject them." Therea placed a gentle hand on the table. "Then teach us to stop the breaking first," she said quietly. "Teach us to heal before we rebuild." Her words hit him harder than she realized. Humans had spent centuries breaking and rebuilding themselves, through wars, mistakes, and pain. Maybe the Nyali didn't just need genes, they needed the story behind them. Over the next days, they worked together. Therea learned to handle human tools with surprising grace. She watched Elias explain cell repair, protein folding, and resistance. Every time he spoke about struggle and adaptation, her eyes glowed brighter, as if she understood more than just science. She understood the soul behind it. At night, they often talked by the sea. The stars shimmered above, and Therea told him about her home world, Nyara Prime, a planet once filled with crystal forests and glowing rivers. "We forgot how to suffer," she said softly one evening. "We built comfort, perfection, and in doing so we lost the strength that comes from pain. Your kind, you never lost it." Elias looked at her, his voice calm. "Suffering isn't strength. It's the fire that tests it." She nodded slowly, her gaze distant. "Then maybe we need to feel the fire again." Days turned into weeks. Elias began to notice small changes. Therea's energy grew weaker, her skin losing its silver glow. He realized her condition was worsening faster than expected. The gene collapse was accelerating. One night, as he studied her blood samples, the door burst open. A tall figure stood outside, dressed in a black uniform. Captain Renval, Therea's second-in-command, had arrived from the Oralis 9. His eyes burned with anger. "You shouldn't be here, Commander," he said sharply. "The Council ordered us to act. The humans will never help. We must take what we need." Therea rose to her full height, her voice firm. "I gave my word, Captain. We will not steal. We will learn." "Learn?" Ren spat.
While our children die?
His eyes turned to Elias. "This human is playing with you. They always play before they betray." Elias stepped forward. "I'm doing everything I can. But if you take by force, you'll lose everything. You'll lose what makes you worth saving." The tension crackled like electricity. Therea looked between them, torn between loyalty and faith. For the first time, Elias saw fear in her eyes. Not for herself, but for the choice she would have to make. Ren's voice turned cold. If we fail, our race dies. Are you willing to risk that? For trust? Theria's voice trembled, but her eyes did not. Yes, she said quietly. Because without trust, we're already dead. Ren's face darkened. He stepped back and turned away. Then may your faith save you, Commander, he said bitterly, before vanishing into the shadows. Elias watched her shoulders slump once the door closed. The silence between them was heavy. Finally, she whispered, He's right to be angry, but I cannot become a thief of life. Elias placed a hand over hers. You're not. You're trying to be human. Theria looked up, her eyes filled with light and tears. Then help me remember how. Outside, thunder rolled across the sea. Inside the lab, two beings, one human, one alien, held on to the last fragile piece of hope. The storm passed, but the silence that followed was heavier than thunder. Elias and Theria worked without rest. The air inside the lab smelled of metal, coffee, and hope. Each night, new results appeared on the glowing screens, small, fragile signs of progress. But progress was not enough. Elias had found something strange. When he combined human DNA with Nyali cells, the structure almost stabilized. But only when the human sample came from a living source. Once frozen or copied, it lost power completely. That small detail haunted him. Your DNA doesn't just carry life, he murmured one night staring at the data. It carries energy, something emotional, something alive. Theria looked up from her side of the table. Then it is not only science, she said softly. It is soul. He nodded slowly. Maybe that's why no one could recreate it. You can't synthesize the human spirit in a lab. Theria watched him quietly, her gaze full of respect. Your people are strange, she said. You destroy, you heal, you fall, you rise. And somehow that chaos makes your blood powerful. Elias gave a tired smile. We're a mess. But we care. Maybe that's what gives our cells strength. They were never designed for perfection. The next few days were filled with experiments and failure. Each failure brought them closer to despair. The samples degraded faster, and Theria's condition worsened. Her glowing skin began to fade, her breathing grew slower. Still, she refused to rest. I must see this through, she said. If I stop now, my people stop with me. Elias wanted to argue, but he saw the fire in her eyes, the same fire that had driven humans to survive every impossible century. So he didn't stop her. Instead, he worked harder, desperate to find the key she needed. One morning, as dawn painted the sky in orange and gold, Elias noticed something new in the data. It was a sequence, tiny, hidden deep inside human DNA. A pattern that only activated under emotional stress. He froze, staring at the screen. This is it, he whispered. The code that changes when we feel hope or fear or love. Theria leaned closer, fascinated. You mean, emotion changes your biology? Yes, Elias said, almost breathless. It's what makes us adapt so fast. When humans suffer, the body rewrites itself to survive. She looked at him in silence for a long time, then whispered, That is what we lost. Elias turned to her. Maybe we can bring it back. But there was a problem. To stabilize the formula, he needed a living donor. Someone who could transfer not just blood, but feeling. Artificial sources wouldn't work. Elias hesitated. If I do this, it could change me, he said. It might even kill me. Theria shook her head quickly. No, you cannot risk your life for us. He smiled faintly. Isn't that what being human means? Risking for something bigger than yourself? For a moment, neither spoke. Then Theria's voice trembled. You would share your life? For a dying species you barely know? Elias met her eyes. Because you asked with honesty, and because no one else did. She stared at him, her silver eyes shimmering with emotion. Elias Hart, she said quietly. You carry more strength than all the empires I've seen. He began preparing the transfer, a process to merge a trace of his living DNA with hers in a controlled sequence. It wasn't much, but it might stabilize her body long enough to perfect the cure. As the machine started, a faint glow surrounded the chamber. Tharea stood inside, her body trembling as the first strand of human DNA entered her system. Her voice echoed softly. "It feels warm." Elias watched carefully, his heart racing. The readings were unstable. For a moment he feared it would fail again. Then the monitor steadied. Her cells were accepting it. The data lines pulsed with new life. "It's working," he whispered. Tharea opened her eyes, her glow returning brighter than before. "It feels like memory," she said softly. "Like, your world is inside me." He smiled in relief, though exhaustion filled his bones. "Then it's a start." But outside, above the clouds, the Oralis 9 had already detected the energy surge. Captain Renval stood at the control deck, eyes narrowing as he read the data. "She's using human DNA," he muttered. "Without permission." His second officer frowned. "Should we intervene?" Ren's voice hardened. "If she gives human essence to the Council, they'll call her a traitor. But if she fails, we lose everything. Prepare for contact." Inside the lab, Elias and Tharea had no idea they were being watched. They only knew one thing: something beautiful had begun. Tharea looked at her trembling hands, the new glow returning. "Elias," she whispered, "your blood carries more than life. It carries forgiveness." He looked at her with quiet awe. "Then maybe that's what your people need most." Outside, the sea roared again. Above it, two destinies, human and alien, had just crossed beyond return. The news reached the Nyali Council before dawn. Commander Tharea Velen had broken protocol. She had merged human DNA into her own body, without approval, without supervision, and without their control. For most of the Nyali, it was more than disobedience. It was blasphemy. Inside the glowing council chamber aboard the flagship Serenith, the leaders gathered. Silver skin shimmered under cold blue light as voices rose in fury. "She has bonded with a human," one shouted. "She risks contamination," cried another. But among them, only one voice remained calm. High Chancellor Listen, Tharia's oldest mentor. "Enough," she said, her tone quiet yet sharp. Tharia was the finest among us. If she broke the law, it was not for herself. It was for us. Captain Renval stood in the center of the chamber, his posture rigid. "Chancellor, she acts with human sentiment. Emotion clouds her judgment. You taught us that emotions are weakness." Leeson's gaze softened. "Perhaps that is why we are dying, Captain. Perhaps we forgot the strength that emotion gives." But the Council had already decided. A recall order was sent to Earth. Tharia was to return immediately and surrender all human data, or be branded a traitor. On Earth, Tharia had just begun to feel life returning to her body. The human DNA inside her pulsed softly like a heartbeat, spreading warmth through her veins. For the first time in years, she didn't feel pain. Elias watched her carefully, eyes wide with amazement. "Your cells are stabilizing," he said. "The structure is rewriting itself. You're adapting." She touched her chest, feeling her heart race. "It feels like something inside me is learning to live again." But before they could celebrate, the lab systems flickered. A sharp alarm sounded. Tharia turned to the window. An enormous shadow loomed over the cliffs. The Oralis 9 had returned, descending through the clouds with engines blazing. Renval had come. Elias stepped back as the door burst open, soldiers in silver armor storming the room. Their weapons glowed softly, not with rage, but with duty. Tharia moved in front of Elias, her voice steady. "Stand down," she commanded. "This human is under my protection." Ren entered, his eyes dark with disappointment. "You broke the law, Commander. The Council demands your return." Tharia stood tall, her body glowing faintly with human warmth. "And what will they do, Ren? Destroy the only living proof that our people can still evolve?" Ren's jaw tightened. "You think they will listen to you now that you are mixed?" He looked at Elias with disgust. "This creature tainted your blood." Elias clenched his fists but stayed silent. He knew words wouldn't change a mind raised in fear. Tharia took a step forward, her voice trembling with emotion. "Elias gave me life, not control, not power, but life. What we lost centuries ago. Ren turned away. You've become one of them. I've become something new, she said. And that's what we needed all along. Ren hesitated. Deep down he respected her. He had followed her through wars and darkness. But the Council's order was clear. He raised his weapon slowly. Forgive me, Commander. Before he could fire, Elias stepped between them. You'll have to go through me. Ren blinked in disbelief. You would die for her? Elias's voice was quiet but strong. No, I die for what she stands for. For a moment, time froze. Rain beat against the windows, lightning flashed across the ocean, and the human and alien faced each other, one holding faith, the other holding duty. Thorea's hand rose, trembling. Ren, please, she whispered. You were my friend once. Look at me. I'm still me. Ren's weapon lowered, his voice breaking. You've changed. Yes, she said softly. That's what life does, it changes. That's why humans survive, and that's why we can too. Ren's face twisted with conflict. The storm outside roared louder, echoing the battle inside his heart. Finally, he turned to his soldiers. Leave her. The others looked uncertain.
Captain?
That's an order, he said firmly. We'll report that she's under evaluation. When they left, Thorea stood in silence, her breath shaking. Elias touched her shoulder gently. You just saved yourself a war. She looked at him, her voice barely above a whisper. No, Elias, I just delayed one. He frowned. The Council won't stop. No, she said. They will come. But maybe by then, we'll have something stronger than fear to show them. She turned to the window where the storm began to fade. The sea reflected the rising moon, glowing silver and gold. Your DNA saved my body, she said softly, but your heart saved my spirit. Elias smiled tiredly. Then maybe the cure was never just in blood. That night, as the ship vanished into the clouds, both knew the fragile peace wouldn't last. The Council would not forgive her defiance. But something greater had begun, something that no council could stop. Hope had entered alien blood. The days after the confrontation were uneasy. The Oralis 9 hovered high above the ocean, silent and watchful, while Elias and Thorea worked below in the small cliffside lab. Every night, lights from the alien ship flickered across the clouds like restless stars. They both knew it was only a matter of time before the Nyali Council acted again. Inside the lab, the soft hum of machines filled the air. Elias leaned over the console, scanning the data streaming from Thorea's latest blood test. The readings were stable, stronger than before. Her body had accepted the human DNA completely. It's holding, he said quietly, unable to hide the awe in his voice. You're healing faster than anything I've seen. Thorea smiled faintly. Then we've proved that our species can live. She looked at her hands, flexing her fingers in wonder. But what will it cost? Elias met her eyes. Maybe the cost is worth it. She didn't answer. Instead, she walked to the window. Rain fell softly, washing the glass in silver lines. My people fear change, she said. To them, I'm no longer Nyali. I'm something. In between, he stepped closer. Your evolution, that's what survival looks like. Her voice trembled. Evolution always demands a fight. That fight came sooner than either expected. Late one night, a message broke through their communication system. The face of High Chancellor Listen appeared on the holographic screen. Her expression was calm but filled with sorrow. Thorea Velen, she said, you are ordered to return. You have contaminated yourself with foreign code. You risk the entire Nyali race. Thorea bowed her head slightly. I have risked myself to save it. Lisan's eyes softened. I taught you to lead, not to rebel. But rebellion runs in your blood now, his blood. She glanced toward Elias. Human defiance. Elias stood beside Thorea, unafraid. She's not your enemy, he said. She found life. Isn't that what you wanted? Listen's tone grew colder. Not at the cost of purity, If human blood spreads, it will divide our people forever. Then let it divide them, Tharea said, her voice strong now. Let those who fear change die with the past. The rest will live. The Chancellor's eyes shimmered with quiet sadness. You leave me no choice. The screen went dark. Moments later, alarms echoed from the cliffs. The Aralis 9 had launched a strike team. The Council had chosen war. Elias ran to the window and saw beams of blue light slicing through the clouds. They're coming, he said breathlessly. Therea's voice stayed calm. Then we finish this now. Together they moved through the lab. Elias gathered the research drives while Therea activated her personal shield. Her glow had changed. It wasn't the cold light of her species anymore. It burned with soft warmth, almost human. When the first blast hit the ground, the walls trembled. Dust fell from the ceiling. Elias covered the drives with his jacket and turned to Therea. If they take the data, they'll destroy it. Then we can't let them, she said firmly. They stepped outside into the storm. The air was thick with rain and energy. Alien soldiers descended in silver suits, their weapons glowing. Therea stood before them, her body shining with living light. Stand down, she shouted. I am your commander. But the soldiers didn't listen. Their orders came from the Council now. Elias picked up a fallen branch from the ground, useless against alien weapons, but still, he held it like a soldier. Therea glanced at him. Why do you always stand in front of danger? Because someone has to, he said simply. The soldiers fired. Therea threw up her shield, a burst of blue energy spreading around them. The blasts hit like thunder, but the shield held. Still, she staggered under the pressure. Elias grabbed her arm, steadying her. You can't take them all, he shouted. I don't have to, she said. Just long enough to show them what I've become. Then something unexpected happened. Her body began to pulse brighter, the human DNA reacting to stress. Her shield shifted color from blue to golden light. The soldiers hesitated, confused. Renval appeared from the ranks, his weapon lowered. Therea, stop this, he called. You'll destroy yourself. She looked at him through the storm. No, Ren, I'll save us all. With a cry that echoed like a song, she released the energy. The golden wave swept across the battlefield, not destroying, but healing. The soldiers froze as their weapons dissolved into harmless dust. The rain turned warm. The ground stopped shaking. Elias stared in disbelief. What? What did you do? Therese's glow dimmed, her voice weak but calm. I shared your element, the human will. It changed me. And them. Ren fell to his knees, his armor flickering. He looked at his hands, glowing faintly with the same golden hue. I feel alive, Therea smiled faintly. Now you understand. As the last light faded, she collapsed. Elias caught her before she hit the ground. Therea, stay with me! Her eyes fluttered open, glowing softly. Don't cry, Elias. Change always hurts before it heals. Then her body went still. Elias held her, the rain falling softly around them. Above, the Nayali soldiers stood silent, not as enemies anymore, but witnesses to something new. The storm passed, leaving behind a silence that felt sacred. The wind slowed, the ocean calmed, and faint golden dust floated in the air where Therea's light had touched the world. The battlefield that had once roared with violence now glowed with quiet peace. The Nayali soldiers stood still, their armor humming softly as if it too had changed. Elias knelt beside Therea's still body. Her skin shimmered faintly, but her chest did not rise. He pressed his forehead against hers, his voice trembling. Please, not like this. Not after everything. He waited, listening for a heartbeat that never came. The rain mixed with his tears as he whispered, You said it would heal. Renval stood nearby, silent and pale. His hands still glowed with golden energy. He looked down at his former commander, his voice breaking. She did heal us. Look around, human. She ended the war. Elias looked up. The soldiers who had come to kill them now knelt in the mud, staring at their hands. Their skin glowed faintly, half Nayali, half something new. The golden light had touched their DNA. rewriting it just as it had rewritten Therea's. She gave her life for this, Ren said quietly. She gave us a bridge between worlds. Elias didn't answer. He gathered Therea's body in his arms and carried her toward the cliffs. The ocean stretched endless and dark beyond them, but the horizon glowed with a strange new dawn. He laid her down on a smooth stone and brushed her hair from her face. For the first time since he'd met her, she looked completely at peace. He looked at Ren. Your council will come. They'll try to take this away. Ren shook his head. Not anymore. No council can stop what has already begun. The transformation is spreading through every soldier she touched. The old Nyali cannot return. Elias turned toward the sky where the Oralis 9 still hovered. Its lights flickered uncertainly like a heart-losing rhythm. Then she won, he whispered. Ren looked at him with quiet respect. She believed you would carry her dream. Elias felt his throat tighten. A dream that cost her everything. Ren stepped closer. Not everything. Look. He pointed at Therea's chest. A faint pulse of light flickered beneath her skin. Weak but steady. Elias froze. She's alive? Ren smiled faintly. Not alive as before. She is becoming something beyond both of us.